Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Joe Knows the 2021 NFL Draft Class. And today we are covering your favorite team, the Denver Broncos. And with me, I have a very special guest. Like me, he is a contributor here at Toilets to Titles at our channel, at our network, dare I say. And he goes by the name Mike. He also goes by the name at Dirty Jobs 21. And he also is known as the world's #1 Denver Broncos fan, but I told him he has to bring the credentials to prove it. Mike, let's see it.
Right here, buddy. Right
ding,
here.
Ding, ding, ding. It's official. It's official. It's all good, man.
They don't just sell those at stores or anything like that.
They don't.
Like, you actually have to be the #1 fan to earn that. And,
and I remember you telling me how John Elway, he didn't bring it to your front door, but how he dropped it by helicopter, just dropped it over on your front lawn by helicopter. I thought that was
no, he hand delivered it. I thought I told you about the John Elway hand delivery. Yeah, he said, Michael, you're the #1 fan. Here you go, buddy. He's like, let's hang out sometime. I'm like, John, I'm a pretty busy guy.
I actually heard that story secondhand from someone else. It might have been Coach Sheps. And so now I'm actually hearing from you directly. There we go. There we go.
Also,
see, we learned something new.
Also, fact checkers don't fact check that.
No, who cares about facts? FAX. I'm not about facts. No FAX around here. Forget that stuff. If that were true, we wouldn't be doing this show, because this is an opinion-based show. Anyway, so we've got great stuff. Hey, Denver Broncos, this is part of the show where I like to give some sort of I'm a Giants fan, but I feel like I have an emotional or nostalgic connection with pretty much every team, most teams out there. And I have a lot of respect for Mike's organization, the team that he roots for all the great Denver Broncos fans out there. This is a team that has, for decades and decades and decades, has always been in the thick of things. They're always competitive. Yes, like every team, they always take, you'll have a year or two, maybe three, short period of time where they take a step back, and then they come roaring back, and they're always in the middle of things. Going back to the late 70s with the Orange Crush, I loved John Elway. The guy was such one of the best quarterbacks of all time. I loved how in the 80s, they had a tough time. They were good under Dan Reeves. They went to 3 Super Bowls. Obviously it didn't work out, but as a guy who's nearing the end of his career, what does he do in the late 90s with a great defense behind him and a great running game and Shannon Sharp? He goes to back-to-back Super Bowls and wins them. And that was impressive to see. Was something I greatly respected. I like it a lot. And like I said, you guys are always in the middle of things, and I think you're this close. You're this close. Pretty much, I think Elway, I asked Mike before behind screen. I said, Mike, is he GM, president and GM? And Mike was like, I think he's just like everything at the Broncos now. So I think his new title is going to be, I'm not sure what his exact title is, but I think Elway's title at the Broncos is probably Galactic Overlord, because I believe he's got control of everything over there. And I like the team that he's building for you guys. That's just my opinion. He seems to be a defensive-minded GM, president, whatever he is. And I like what he's building over there. He's also given, I like personally that Locke is getting another chance. I think he has the potential to be a #1 quarterback. I'm not saying it's written in stone, but I like that he's getting that chance. And whether or not he's the quarterback, or they got to take another one next year or trade for one, maybe this year or next year, he's got receivers to go ready to go for that quarterback. In Judy and Cortland Sutton. And so I think he's given them, and he's building up a heck of a defense. So I think he's building up a good team for you guys.
While I agree with a lot of that, the one thing I do like about John Elway is the fact that he is very defensive minded. He's always kept a good defense. He's always kept a solid defense. I mean, you look at what he's done with the defense now, and like we were talking about before the show too, 7 out of the 10 first draft picks going towards a defensive spot. Yep. There is a point in time where I feel like you should kind of focus a little bit more on offense as well. Right. That defense has always had Von Miller. And I mean, Von Miller is such a stud, such an awesome dude.
Such a difference maker.
Exactly. And I mean, in the locker room. So, I mean, I feel like you could get away with maybe having a little bit of a lesser core linebackers or things like that, because you're going to get guys like him that are going to bring those guys up to the next level anyways. Right. I mean, they bring this kind of, so when he passed on Josh Allen a few years back, and then when they passed on Justin Fields this year,
quite a few teams did on Josh Allen and Justin Fields. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like that to me, it hurts as a Broncos fan because the one thing that I notice about Drew Lock that I feel like a lot of Denver fans seem to notice as well is that his IQ and his intelligence in the pocket, he's not able to get up to the line, make good decisions based on the things around him. Like we were spoiled when we got Peyton Manning. I mean, that's what we're looking for is somebody that comes up there and says, I know exactly what's going to happen right here, and I'm going to do something about it.
Ultimate field general.
Exactly.
Just like Elway, just like Marino, this guy was a field general. He knew everything.
Yep.
There was nothing you were going to get by Peyton Manning. Period.
Right. And I mean, and so that's what we're looking for when we're looking for a quarterback. So Drew Lock is never going to hit that potential. I mean, it's always been a smattering of people, and I mean, a lot of people forget that Denver paid for that Super Bowl. They paid for Peyton Manning. They paid for their entire future to get that one all-in moment with Peyton Manning. They got what they wanted, and we got our Super Bowls. But now we got to sit back and reap what we've sown as far as that goes. But it's really turned around.
No, it has turned around, and I think he's a superior, one of the greatest minds in front. He's one of the greatest front office minds out there in football. I really like what he does, and yet I know what you're saying. It was more like a short term that you were invested in. It's sort of like you gave up on the long term. A few years ago. That is when did you win? That was like 2015. You won, I think.
Yep.
It really wasn't all that. Yeah, it really wasn't all that long ago. But I know but I understand what you're saying. And I hear you. I believe I wouldn't be surprised at all if most Bronco fans don't believe in Lock in terms of long-term quarterback. And I'm not sure. I just think that it's good. I'm glad that he's getting another full year because last year he's got your offensive coordinator. He was the Pat Shermer. He's always been a very good quarterbacks coach. He is a good offensive coordinator, and they had a full year, but it was COVID. Everything was messed up for a lot of people, and it could be that he's not going to wind up being your guy. But I'm just glad to see that he's getting a shot. At least he's starting off the year that way. And I think it's a good idea, and I hope it works out. It might not, it probably won't, but I think it's a worthy investment in a little more time with this guy. But
and I mean, if he can outdo defensive coordinators, he'll be fine. I mean, he'll be able to compete at the NFL level. And I mean, like you were saying, the weapons he's surrounded by are probably the best in the NFL. I mean, you got. With Sutton, you go all the way to KJ Hamler. I mean, KJ Hamler's like third string, and KJ Hamler is amazing. I mean, so they're very deep at wide receiver.
Yeah, we'll see. And I would say have a little trust in Shermer. He was the Giants head coach for 2 years, including Daniel Jones' rookie year. That was his last year here. And obviously they weren't a good team. But Daniel Jones, a lot of people don't realize, actually surprisingly had a sneakily, I don't know if that's a real word, a sneaky, actually good rookie year, putting up like on pace over 12 games for like 32 touchdowns. And it's because Shermer is pretty good at simplifying the offense for young quarterbacks. My point is that I'd like to see those two get a full year together, Lock and Shermer. So I think it's interesting. We'll see what happens. But let's move on to our 2021 draft class, baby, and this defensive heavy load that you got that I'm really impressed with, as well as your offensive players too, because I thought they were darn good. So before we do that, the bells and whistles, where you can follow the show: Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, Facebook, where we have 2 pages, Toilets to Titles and When a Family Breaks, which is dedicated to trading of sports memorabilia. Damn, I'm getting that down really well. Hit and like that subscribe button. Pound, pound, pound that button. We love feedback. If you want to give us a thumbs down, that's fine too. It's all good. It goes to yes, and I need one of those hats. But I definitely want one of those hats and a shirt, but definitely a hat. Metrics help us out, even if it give us a thumbs down. It'll hurt his feelings. It'll hurt our feelings. We have broad shoulders. We can deal with it. But just give us some reaction, especially thumbs up. We'd love that. If you can, even if you're not watching on an Apple, go to Apple. Give us a 5-star review. If you got 30 seconds to spare, that helps us out a lot too. And if you go to patreon.com/toilets to titles, you can further learn how to support the show. Now, moving on to our juicy content for our Denver Broncos, the monsters of the Rocky Mountains. You guys had 10 picks total. Most teams walk into a draft with 7 picks. Basically, that's 1 pick per round. You guys had a total of 10. That included 2 picks in the 3rd round, 2 picks in the 5th round, and 3 picks in the 7th round. And I tried to look for a theme with every team's draft class. you'll notice that some teams went defensive heavy, some teams focused on offensive line, and it kind of tells me what that team's needs are. And some teams they're just players all over the place, and that's fine too. But I like to see if there are themes out there. For Denver, I definitely felt like there was a theme. Out of your 10 picks, 7 of them were on the defensive side of the ball, and 4 of those 7 were in the secondary. And I like a lot of those picks. We're going to get to them. I found that there was a lot of real potential everywhere for your team in this draft class. I was very impressed with it. And we are going to move on to your number 1 pick, number 9 overall in the first round, Patrick Surtain, cornerback out of Alabama. Now, this guy, this was a very good cornerback draft, in my opinion. And the big 3 names were, and you can put them in any order you want, really. It was J.C. Horn, who actually I think went 1 pick before to Carolina. Patrick Surtain, and you had Caleb Farley. And Patrick Surtain, I guess comparing the 3, I would say it seems like the common thought seems to be that Surtain's ceiling wasn't as high as the other 2, but he has certainly had the highest floor. And I agree with that. I think his ceiling, first of all, is high enough. I think it's good. I think his ceiling is great. And I think with that really high floor, he was a very safe pick. This is a guy I would love to have on my team, the Giants. And I think, first year is hard for a cornerback. It's a hard transition. Maybe the second year, if not this year, by the second year, I think he'll be locking down an opposing team's number 1 wide receiver. So I think you got great. I think you did very well here for your team. What do you think, Mike?
I mean, like I said, I really wanted to see a quarterback right here. I do like Surtain. I do feel like they did reach a bit. Now, this is a guy you're not going to see come back around, obviously, but I feel like, they could have traded down if they were going to make this pick. Something to that effect, something that would have improved their situation. I do really like Surtain a lot, though. I mean, the guy is quick. He's got good readability on the ball.
Yeah. And you like the player. It was just like the pick, like you would have done something else, but you like the player.
Absolutely. So now that being said, it's kind of like Bradley Chubb. They took Bradley Chubb instead of Josh Allen. And to me, that was a big mistake. But it doesn't mean that I don't love having Bradley Chubb out there smashing people for the defense. I'd just rather have Josh Allen hucking the football on the other side of the ball.
Yeah. Hey, as a Giants fan, the big talk for a long time, I mean, especially now that he's injured, but the great question for Giants fans for a few years, and even when he was drafted, was Saquon Barkley. Everyone was like, I love the player. You know what? I love the player, but I would have taken would have traded back, or I would have taken one of the quarterbacks like a Sam Darnold or even a Chubb. It was the same draft, I believe. So we had this. A lot of fans of my team had that same point to bring up. But for quarterback, out of who was available at that time, just out of curiosity, for you, was it Justin Fields or Mac Jones? It was Justin Fields.
It was Justin Fields, by a long shot. I do like Mac Jones. I just don't feel like he was I feel like he was born to be a Patriot, if that makes any sense. Like, I feel like Mac Jones should be a Patriot. Exactly. Yep. He should be under Belichick. I feel like the Broncos need somebody speedy and quick in the backfield that can be mobilized to get, by Cortland Sutton that extra couple more seconds to break free or something to that effect, and that's where I feel like Fields could have came in there and done that.
I'm a big Cortland Sutton fan, by the way. I love that guy. I try to grab him in fantasy all the time. He's just like, to me, the guy he makes things happen. Even if his quarterback is not great, he always just seems to put up steady production for fantasy. And, to me, he just makes things happen. So I always try to pick him up with all of my fantasy teams. I like that guy a lot. But hey, listen, there's absolutely no debate. And this isn't about debate anyway. Like I explained to Mike and I explained to the viewers, I try to just present to the viewers my belief in what the player that you got can bring to the table. But I also tell my guests to be fully honest about how they feel about something or who they would have taken. And I think that makes great content for our show. But we definitely agree. Patrick Surtain's a good player. You would have went another route, and that's totally fair and totally understandable. But I think we agree you got a darn good player here.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. And moving on, second round, 3rd pick overall in the second round, Javonte Williams, running back out of North Carolina. I'll lead off again on this. Listen, I'm a Giants fan. I've got Barkley, and listen, he hasn't been healthy for the past 2 years, but we saw what he did his rookie year, and there's no denying he was phenomenal. He was awesome. Me, myself, I have a big, big place in my heart for guys who maul a defense. And that's what Javonte Williams does. This guy is 5'10". He's not tall. You don't need to be really tall to be a successful running back. But he's 212 pounds. This guy he's built. He's solid. He is a 3-down running back. Like I have in the blue bar here, my notes. He does it all. He runs people over. He catches the ball and he pass protects. Now, in terms of catching the ball, it's not like this guy was putting up like 500 yards, receiving yards in college every year, but he was effective in terms of, when he was an effective option when the ball was thrown to him, that he can catch it, which means that this guy obviously leads to being him a 3-down back. And I think that's what you got in the second round here. And he didn't have too much tread on the tires either, because he was part of probably the best two-headed running back monster in the NCAA with Carter over at North Carolina. So they were splitting a lot of duty. I think Williams had more carries, but they were splitting a lot of duty. So this guy doesn't come with a lot of wear and tear, and it's a second-round pick. I thought it was great value. I thought you got a really good running back, and yet another weapon to help complement the really good wide receiver core that Elway's putting together. What do you think?
And you put them together with Melvin Gordon and Royce Freeman. I mean, that's a pretty nasty little 1-2-3 punch. I mean, you've got two different speeds in Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. I feel like those guys can be nasty. Like I said, you put a quarterback on this team. We're talking AFC Championship, possibly at the very least, maybe. You still got to get to the juggernaut that is Kansas City. I mean, Kansas City still exists, and that's a very real thing. But I feel like you could beat Kansas City with this team if you put a quarterback on it. I really like this pick though. Javonte Williams was huge for us.
I do. I like it too. I love running backs. I love having, when you have like the 2-headed monster or 3-headed monster. I love it. And you know what? I agree with you. I think you guys are a quarterback away from being, Super Bowl contenders and being in that conversation. The AFC is tough. It have a lot of talent, a lot of talented teams in the AFC. But I think if you guys had the right quarterback, I agree with you. I think you guys could be in the Super Bowl conversation. I agree. And this is yet another great compliment to the rest of your offense. And this is just a great pick. I liked it. In second round too, I liked it, man. Nice move, Elway. Nice move. Third round player I liked a lot. Now here's another offensive player. You went two. Like I said, most of this draft was defense, but 2 out of your first 3 picks are on the offense. I like this guy a lot. I'm a Giants fan. We needed offensive line help, and I would have been very stoked if they drafted Quinn Miners in the 3rd round, that you did with the 35th pick in the 3rd round, from a small school, Wisconsin Whitewater, 6'3", 320 pounds. He was an absolute standout at the Senior Bowl, which is why this guy's name rose suddenly, like the last few weeks before the draft. His name was rising like a rocket up the charts before leading up to the draft, and he wound up going in the 3rd round. Because this guy came from a small school, got the Senior Bowl invite, went up against the big boys, and dominated. He was really good. Now he's got the potential to play. He actually, in college, he played center and guard, but he played mostly center. So here you're getting a guy who's going to be, I don't know the offensive line situation, Mike, in Denver. I'm not all that familiar with it, but you got a guy who can come in. If you needed a center, he can probably start this year. And if not this year, then next year. Or he could be a guard. But this guy is going to be a starter, and I liked him a lot. I thought the value in the 3rd round was phenomenal. I had my eye on him for my team in the 3rd round. Kudos, you got him. What do you think of Miners?
I really do like this pick a lot too. He's solid. He's just a big old brick house, man. And he does not let people by, and he will push you out of the way. And to me, I think that's the most underrated thing that a lot of people weren't talking about with him, is the fact that he is a center, and that's just a position that you don't. If you get a good center, your team is you almost don't even need that good of a quarterback. I mean, because that center's out there doing everything. Yep. I mean,
out the mic.
Exactly. Yep. And I mean, doing everything you need him to do. And so to me, having a good center is really, really good. This is a huge pick for me too. I like this one a lot.
I agree. It's an underrated. I like centers. It's an underrated. Listen, we all talk about tackles, and of course that's important too. And then you think about the cards. It seems like people see the importance of the offensive line deteriorate or decrease as you get to the middle. I like a good center, and I agree, because they're kind of like, they should be sort of like the captain of the offensive line. Calling out the play is a good one. They calling out the mic. They're helping the quarterback to see where blitz is probably coming from. That's what a good center does. This guy actually reminds me of, I forgot his name, but he reminds me of might have been 2 seasons ago when the Buccaneers took a guy from the small college called Hobart, and I'm brain farting on his name right now, but it was the same thing. A guy invited to the senior small school, went to the Senior Bowl, did really well. And I think he was taken like in the 3rd round by the Buccaneers. And I forgot who it was, but it's, he's doing very well. Buccaneers have put together a good offensive line, and he's part of it. He's part of it. But that's just in terms of that story, that small school story on the offensive line. It just reminded me of that. So, but moving on to another defensive player now. Here we go. Linebacker Baron Browning from Ohio State. He was 42nd pick overall in the 3rd round. 6'3", 245 pounds. Guy's built like a linebacker. He's pretty solid, and his reputation and just what I saw a little tape on this guy. Like, I never try to make it sound like I'm in my basement looking at film, reels and reels of film on these guys, or I'm watching like lots of YouTube videos. But I watched a little bit on him. I like the way he plays, and he's to me he's a very typical Ohio State linebacker in that he's a very steady player. He kind of does it all. I don't think he's not flashy, but this is a guy who's got some versatility in that he can play at the Mike and the Sam, and he plays against the run and the pass. So you've got a potential 3-down linebacker here. And again, it's his 3rd round pick. I don't know if he's going to be starting this year, but I think maybe by next year there's a good chance. I think this he's going to be. I don't know if he's ever going to be a Pro Bowler, but I think he's going to be like a rock steady player for you guys. And I like to pick at the back end of the 3rd round. How about yourself there, Mike?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, exactly. A good old steady Eddie. I agree. He's not going to be anything that like stands out and especially, I mean,
Von
look
Miller
at,
we're talking about.
And then Bradley Chubb on the other side of things, you know, I mean, you've got already a mean linebacker core that he's going to come in and learn from, be able to take some notes from. I mean, so anytime you grab a linebacker of this size and this capability and you put him under that kind of tutelage, I'm pretty excited about the outcome that's probably going to happen result out of that. So.
Yeah, you should. He's going to a talented defense. He's going to have a lot of talent around him. And like I point out to viewers, listen, not everyone needs to be a Pro Bowler. You need those rock steady players. And I think that's what you got with Baron Browning. I liked it at the end of the 3rd round. And I thought it was fair value. I really like it.
Huge value. Yeah, huge value. Yeah. A linebacker of his capability, you know, to be able to get that's very versatile.
Yeah, potential 3-down linebacker at the end of the 3rd round. I like that. I like that a lot. So moving on to the 5th round. So you didn't have a 4th round pick, but you had 2 5th round picks, if I recall correctly. 8th pick in the 5th round, you took Caden Stern, safety out of Texas. This guy is interesting. 6 foot, 202 pounds. To me, that is safety size. I like it a lot. As I said in the notes here, I wasn't too familiar with him, so I definitely had to do more research like last night in prep for this. I was familiar with the name, but I wasn't all that familiar with the player, so I did a little more. I liked what I read up on this guy. He put up big-time numbers as a rookie at Texas. But then he was getting injured at college, and it took a toll on him. It's like you need to get on the field and be, to be able to develop in a steady fashion, and he wasn't able to do that. But as a rookie, the guy was putting up big-time numbers, and I didn't put those numbers in notes. Just take my word for it. I'm not lying. But his pro day numbers were off the charts. This guy is an athlete. And when he plays, he's a big time hitter, which you like to hear from safeties. Which is right. And I think that sounds very nice for the Denver Broncos defense. And he might be more of a box safety, but listen, not every safety is going to be, a guy who excels at playing the run and excels at covering receivers. If this guy in the 5th round, if he could be a rock solid, box safety, maybe he'll be more than that too. But I think that in the 5th round you need those type of players, and that's where he might come in. And I think with his athleticism and his size, I think gives you some nice potential here from the 5th round.
Yeah, I like you were saying, I mean, he didn't get that development. I feel like we've been trying to replace Steve Atwater since he's
that's
been
the name
gone.
that came to mind. Yep.
And I mean, that's what I like to see is those guys that come in there, those big hit guys. John Lynch, that was another really big time safety for Denver. so I guarantee you that he's got a home if he can pick it up and get up to that level. That's to be seen. I do expect him to get up to that NFL level, but it's just going to be tough. He's got a lot of growing to do, but he's got the potential. That's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, he'll need time. He's a 5th round pick. He'll need time. But exactly, I'm like, this guy's he's a heavy hitter. It's like I thought Denver Broncos secondary safeties. When I saw heavy hitter, I'm like, ooh. I'm like, he's going to fit in nice with this team, with this defense. Now look at this real quick. Before I move on to your second 5th round player, I just found it interesting. 6 foot, 202 pounds, right, for Caden Stearns. Now your next guy, Jamar Johnson, 6 foot, 205 pounds. It's like a duplicate clone safety body here. I like this guy even more actually than Caden Stearns. I really like this guy a lot. Safety out of Indiana. This guy is like a ball hawk, and he's very good at passing, breaking up the pass in only somewhat limited time in school. Like it wasn't like he was he only started, I think, later on in his college career. But this guy was, even when he was coming out as a starter, but he was, say like 13 games, maybe he started like 4 games out of 13, like his first year. This guy was always around the ball. From what I read and from what I saw a little film on him. This guy was always around the ball. He's a ball hawk. He's instinctive, and apparently he's got a very high football IQ, where this guy is very quick at diagnosing plays. And I like players like that. I like heady players, guys who study film, guys who are instinctive, and it gives you a head start on plays. And I think Jamar Johnson, I liked him even more than Caden Stearns. I think this is a potential steal in the 5th round. I really do. And myself, as an outsider, I'd say keep an eye on this guy.
Yeah, no, he's really quick, and like the high football IQ, to me, that's what sells him to me. And again, like his the way he can get in there and break it up. No, Denver did really good about shoring up their deep ball. That you're going to have the no-fly zone very, very much in effect again.
I think so too. It's going to be pretty fearsome over there. And you gave your defense guys to compete.
Right.
That's what you did over in the secondary. I like it a lot. You see how it shakes out over some time. Seth Williams, 35th pick in the 6th round. Seth Williams, wide receiver out of Auburn, big body guy. This is another name that now he wasn't a 1st-tier wide receiver. He wasn't a 2nd-tier wide receiver. But he's one of those guys another name that came up a lot when people are looking past those top 2 tiers. Like, what other players out there could be like a real steal in the mid rounds? And you got this guy in the 6th round, Seth Williams. I was very familiar with this player. He's a big, solid dude. He averaged his rookie year, he was averaging 20.5 yards per catch. That's amazing. I think that I could be wrong. I think that led the NCAA that year. And it might not have been his rookie year, it might have been his sophomore year, excuse me. And then 14.1 yards and then 16.2 yards per catch. Very impressive. The guy's strong, long, and he's definitely an end zone threat with those, for contested catches. That's just his pedigree. That's what he did in college, and that's why I think he's bringing it to you here. And I like big body guys. Don't get me wrong. I like burners. I like guys who can take the top of a defense too. But I like having a mix. And this guy is, I think he could potentially be like down the road he could be potentially a number 2 or number 3 receiver if he continues to develop. So I thought in terms of value for the 6th round, I thought this is awesome. I like Seth Williams a lot. What say you, Mike?
Oh, why not throw another big, fast, tall receiver in the mix? You know, I mean, they have so much wide receiver depth. It's hard to even this guy's going to have a tough time. He's very talented, very skilled. He's going to have a tough time finding a job, Even Tim Patrick's a stud, I mean, you got KJ Hamler, Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, Okwegwino, however you pronounce that guy's last name, but he's with Drew Lock in Missouri forever.
Yeah.
Man, they just got it all.
It's hard. The fact is, when you have good receivers, guys like Cortland Sutton and Jeudy, I don't know if Sutton's on his 2nd contract yet, but those 2nd contracts come up, and you might have Seth Williams there who makes it easier. I'm not saying it will happen, but potentially where it makes it easier to say we can't afford you, Jeudy.
Yep,
yeah. So
exactly.
Hey, listen, if they cut Seth Williams because it's too crowded, I hope the Giants are looking over at the practice squad because I wouldn't mind scooping them up. I'll say that much.
There you go.
I thought the value in the 6th round was good, man. I think good job by you guys.
Yeah,
I like
that. He's a great receiver, like I said, and he's joining a really good receiver room.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's good. You added some good competition there. And then moving on to this, your first pick in the 7th round, Kerry Vincent Jr. I like this guy. He's a cornerback out of LSU. He's obviously you look at his weight and the size. He's on the smaller side. He's 5'10" to 185 pounds. The dude's an athlete. He was a track and field star at LSU. He's fast. He's most likely going to wind up being, competing for slot corner position. I don't know if starter this year, but maybe next year. But it looks like that's probably going to be his wheelhouse. And this guy, you got to remember, when you're taking a guy, especially in the 7th round, you're looking for guys that you can possibly develop and bring into actually make something out of them. Here you've got a guy who was going up against top tier competition at LSU, and he was succeeding too. I'm not saying this guy was like a shutdown corner, but he had his success at LSU. He did well, and with that speed and his recognition of plays, that's something else I didn't have here. As well as he was another smart player. He's quick at diagnosing plays, and his size. Me myself, I'm not too worried about that, especially if he's matched up in the slot. I've got no problem. I want these players to be instinctive and fast, and that's what this guy does. So I thought 7th round pick. Damn, I liked it. I liked it a lot. I think he can be a nice, either possibly eventually a slot, starting slot corner, or he can give you depth in that position.
Yeah. Again, I mean, you're talking about another room that has a decent crowd. They just stack those positions, and this is like one of the 2 positions they like to stack. They like to have a lot of linebackers. They like to have a lot of cornerbacks and safeties.
Yeah.
He's fast too, but I mean, it's going to be real tough to get through that grinder that is the NFL. Yep, it's a very crowded locker room right there.
It's crowded, but yeah, they're definitely. He was actually the last pick. They had 4 picks in the secondary, and he was the last one. They added a lot to the secondary, a lot of competition, so that was good. And then moving on to your second pick in the 7th round, the 11th pick overall in the 7th round, Jonathan Cooper, defensive end, Ohio. I really didn't know much about this guy. I really wasn't familiar with him at all before I checked out the Broncos picks starting yesterday. He's 6'3", 253 pounds. I think he's someone who could wind up being a decent backup on it. This is not someone I'm going to say could potentially be a starter down the road. I don't think so. I think this is a guy who could wind up being a decent backup. He's pretty big. He's solid. 6'3", 253 pounds. And that, he was playing against elite competition when he was at Ohio State. And apparently he's very, very strong as well. So, he might bring some intangibles to the game. And this is a guy, you're talking about your second pick in the 7th round. It's getting kind of thin. The herd's thinning out at this point. And I think this is a guy who's like going to help you out in terms of depth on, at the DE position. What say you?
Every time I see DE, I think about how dumb it was that we lost Doomerville and how good we could have been if we would have just kept Doomerville for that many years. Yeah, God, he was awesome. But Jonathan Cooper is a big dude, man. I really like this guy. He's fast, and again, he gets through on the sides, crushes in on the inside of that quarterback. So the one thing I really like about good defensive ends is what they can do for your linebackers. And look at what these linebackers that we're working with here. Jonathan Cooper, he's going to have some fun working on that team with good old Von Miller and Chubb coming and tapping and racking through them.
And actually, something I didn't put in my notes here, but it's something I did take notice of last night when I was reading up on him. He is a good penetrator. Like he is good at actually getting between the gaps too. So not just going. It seems like actually, from what I read, it seemed like his strength wasn't so much, going around a tackle like you think of a defensive end going around, but actually cutting in between the tackle and the guard and just like blowing through a gap. So it's going to be interesting. I think he gives them some interesting options down the road. It's going to be crowded. You got 10 picks here. You're loading up the defense. It might be hard for this guy to make the roster, but it might be interesting to keep an eye on this guy in training camp and see what he does. But and your last pick, 26th pick in the 7th round, Marquis. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you know, Marquis Spencer, another defensive end from Mississippi State, 6'4", 301 pounds. Talk about big. Now, he offers nice versatility at both DE and most likely defensive tackle. He actually played some defensive tackle at Mississippi State. I couldn't believe that he was actually listed as a defensive end. He played most of his snaps at defensive end, but he did play at defensive tackle. And I was shocked, given that he's 301 pounds, that he wasn't a tackle. He wasn't a defensive tackle.
Right.
So I'm what screams out to me here is versatility. Maybe he's a defensive end, but I'm thinking, this is a guy maybe down the road where you're trying to load up. I'm thinking depth, of course, for the Broncos line. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Listen, if this guy can penetrate, you want to get some guys up there who can, all get to the quarterback. You maybe move this guy to the inside at defensive tackle, and you send that pass rush, and maybe he's someone who can get to the quarterback. But I found it interesting, a 301-pound defensive end. You don't see that often.
Right. Yeah, no, nose tackle is the word that comes to mind with this guy.
Yeah, right.
Get this guy sitting right above your center and have him smash down the middle the way he can play. And they got him so late. Yeah, I really like this guy a lot too. I think he's a huge defensive ad.
Yeah, maybe that's their plan for them. I always try to think like, wow, like when I look at some players, I'm like, what are they thinking? What are they thinking with this particular guy?
Let's bring back that nose tackle position. Go with the 3-man front, buddy.
Yeah, but maybe they're just going to transition him to compete at defensive tackle. That would be interesting because he was a defensive end. He's got some defensive end moves, so that'd be interesting. But he's got the size for defensive tackle. So, but that's the entire class, 10 picks. What do you think overall with your class? I like it myself.
Like I said, I mean, there's a lot to be excited about on that. The one thing that really still I just can't believe that they're not seeing what everybody else seems to be seeing on Drew Lock. But hey, give the kid another year. I'm okay with that. Although that's not really Denver's attitude. We're a win now organization. If you look at us like Dynasty, we're always in that hunt. We always want that W. We always want that championship. We don't like to take off years as an organization. So
you guys are usually up there in terms of competitiveness. You guys are usually up there. You are. I would just say
because we'll hang you if you don't stay competitive. Like
hey, listen, you guys are demanding fans. I don't blame you. I would just say this as an outside observer: believe in Elway, trust in Elway, trust in the process. That's what I would say. I like what he's done for your team for a while now, and I like what he brings to that team, the talent, and I would say just trust in that guy, just trust in his decision-making capabilities.
Absolutely.
I think you guys are. I'm glad that Locke's getting a chance. I'm actually glad that Philadelphia Eagles are giving Hurts a chance for at least a year. See how it goes. Let's see how it goes. But that's the show. But before we go, just want to give a shout out to all of our contributors here at Toilets and Titles. Here are the Twitter handles at the bottom. You'll see me. You'll see Mike, aka Dirty Jobs 21 at the bottom. We're a great bunch of guys. Follow all of us. We all contribute. We're a good bunch of guys, and make sure you follow us all because we deserve it. And also, one last note, of course, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell, give us a 5-star Apple review for a shot at a free entry to the Frankenstein League, and which is our league that we developed for you, the viewers. It's a fantasy football league. We play with you. We have different rules. It's a lot of fun. Now, wait a second. Are you number one Broncos fan or is she number one Broncos fan?
She is the number one. She's the number one Broncos baby.
Right. Yeah, there you go. And I assume she will be inheriting the big number one in the future.
She will be, yes. I mean, that depends on what John Elway says. That's just not something that it doesn't even get passed down by bloodline. You actually have to be the number one fan to receive that.
Yeah, it has to be earned. I like that.
Yeah.
And I agree with that philosophy. All right, everyone, we're done here. Mike, thanks so much for coming on and talking Denver Broncos with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
bye,
thank you, man. Thanks for having us. Yep. Have a good night.
Well, that sweetie pie was for her, not you.
Oh, that makes me sad.
But I like you a lot anyway. All right. Take care, man. Bye, everyone.
Take it easy, man.